Hey, welcome back to our shop just outside Kennesaw here in North Georgia. This project is this old fern stand or plant stand or pedestal stand. You could put a piece of artwork on it, or in the old days they put ferns on them or whatever. I believe it's American Empire period. It could be a later reproduction from the 20s. It appears to be solid mahogany together. Here we go. You can see the top is water damaged, as we would expect of a piece that held plants. The column is in pretty good shape. It has some finish issues. The finish on the base isn't bad, and it does have the three original feet. They're claw feet, and they appear to be pressed metal. And as far as repairs go, you can see the top is split, and then there's a support piece under the top that's split, and then the bottom is split as well. So we're going to have a few round pieces that are going to need to be re-glued and clamped, and then of course we're going to at least refinish the top and try to maintain as much patina as we can. So here we go. And here's the underside of the top. You can see it's held on to the sub piece, I guess we'll call it, with the 4 screws. Here's the split. I'm not 100% sure how it's held on. Here we'll find out. The bottom is held on with a wooden threaded dowel, so it very well may be held on the same way here. Here's the underside. We have the 3 metal legs, the pressed metal legs. They're still attached. We have an old repair here that was held together with a piece of iron, and then you could see this threaded dowel that holds it together. And of course, this has to come off. This split needs to be repaired, and once we get all the repairs done, we'll take a look at what we're going to do to polish up the finish. But it's really not in bad shape at all. I think the first step here is to take the top off and see what we're working with. So here we go. And these screws don't look to be particularly old. They're certainly not handmade or hand forged. And we don't see any hand planing marks on the underside. So again, I'm convinced that this is a factory made piece. Pieces all over here. So yes, you can see that it was held together with a threaded dowel, and that's exactly where it split, right on the dowel. Okay, I'm going to get out some tape and mark each of these pieces so I don't lose track of them. Here's the pieces to our top. Quite a gap here, but it's still pretty tight here. This is a secondary wood. I'm not sure exactly what it is. So we're going to want to make sure that we get this secured back the best we can as we re-glue this. And then, our main top is completely split. Use it to keep the thing from rolling while I work on the bottom. Okay, let's see about getting this bottom off. This is completely broken, and the only thing holding it on is the little plate on the other side. So let me get that removed. And the back story on this piece is I picked it up this weekend at a yard sale for $15. This doesn't want to come out. A lady was moving. She was originally from New York City, and she said that's where this came from. I don't see any manufacturer's marks on it, but maybe we'll find something down the road here. And you can see that screw is pretty rusty, so this probably was stored in a basement for a while. We're going to have to do something to get that screw out. I'm going to put a little bit of penetrating oil on there. And then a technique that's worked very well for me, something I learned from one of the viewers on the channel, is to take a soldering iron and just put the soldering iron right on the head of the screw. That'll heat it up, and it helps to break that bond loose, because what's happened is the screw's probably rusted in the wood, and the rust expands the screw, and it's jacked out and wedged down tight. So we'll see if we get this off. Then we've got to get these feet off as well, and they also may be a bit of a challenge. Well, it's starting to smoke. I'd say that's probably warm enough. Yeah, it's coming right out now. This screw is partially stripped, so someone tried to get this out and gave up. But that's a real good tip if you ever watch this, watch me burn myself now, is to heat these screws up with a soldering iron. All right, that plate's off, and I think we've got someone pounded a nail. Look at that. It's probably held on with a nail. Let me see if I can thread this off and we can take a better look at it. Let's see if that helps. Okay, I got it pinched in the vise just a little bit. That ought to help it from turning. She's complaining. And here's the part that the bottom rested on. Let's see about getting this piece off. Well, that was a whole lot easier. All right, all we've got to do now is get that broken piece of the top off. That's next. And let's see if we can get this threaded off. Yeah, it's going to come right out. And I did put some wax on that as well. And this is the underside of the top. And when we take the underside away and you see the top, you can see that they were attached cross grain. The grain on this one is going this way. The grain on the one underneath is going that way, and that's certainly why they both split. I can't assemble it the other way around because the screw holes won't line up. So I figured if it was good enough for whoever built it back at either the turn of the century or before, it's good enough for me. So we're going to put it back the way it came after we repair these splits. I got you in as close as I can get you. Hopefully you can see. That's the head of a nail that was pounded down. It looks like folded over and pounded down. And right at the end of that tip, maybe you can see the nail what's left of it that's pulled out. I've got one more up above. I really would rather not dig this nail out if I can help it. I'd rather separate these two pieces and then maybe tap the nail where I can grab it so I don't have to dig in and damage this any more than it already is. So I'm going to spin this around and then see if I can gently pry this apart and get that other nail out. And that other nail is right here. Let's just see what we can do by hand. There we go. That was too easy. All right, the next step is to try to tap this nail back so I can grab it and pull it out. This one here is very badly rusted and very well may just disintegrate on me. Yeah, it's starting to move. I've got this in the vise padded with a towel. Yeah, we've got that. We've got the head protruding. We've got one on the other side here. Do the same thing. Nice and easy. Beautiful. And by tapping those nails from that direction, we've got them out enough we can grab them now. And using a putty knife to protect the wood. Oh boy. This nail is very badly rusted and it's breaking on me. I'm going to grab a different pair of nippers. There. And there's the culprit right there. It's a modern Brad and it's rusty as heck. All right, I'm going to wrestle with the second one and then we'll go forward. And that's what happened when that first nail came out, despite all of our efforts. So what I'm going to do is just put a drop of super glue on this piece here and then press it back in, and we'll move on from there. And that's the other nail hole. It's nowhere near as bad, and we'll just eventually fill this. This is the underside of the bottom, and no one will ever see this, but again, we try to do the best we can. This is super thin super glue. It's cyanoacrylate glue. And I'm just going to let it soak in here. And it's back down where it needs to be. And that'll dry in just a few minutes. We've got two 2x4s, scrap 2x4s that I traced the diameter, the curvature of the top, cut it out with a jigsaw. So now I've got clamping pressure across this way. It allows me to put 3 clamps on, one at the apex of the curve and one on either side, so it gives me full pressure in this direction. I then have 2 clamps here to hold the top level, and then underneath is just blocks of wood to get it up off the table so I can get these clamps on. This piece is warped. It's been broken so long it's warped, and it's taken a set like this, so it's pretty difficult to pull this top seam together. And that's going to be pretty much the focus of what we're trying to do, because I'd really like to try to get this broken finish off without altering the color too much, because I really like the way this is aged, and I really want to keep this piece looking old when we're done. So what I'm going to do is take this all apart, we'll glue up the top and then reassemble it and clamp it. Normally on a piece this old I would use hide glue, hot hide glue, but I'm going to use regular PVA woodworker's glue because I want the extra open time, because I have a feeling that we're going to be wrestling with this for a little while to try to get it exactly right. Plus the joint, although it's clean and it's flat, because it's warped, it's not 100%, and I think the carpenter's glue would do a better job for us. So let me disassemble this, I'll glue this up, and then we'll assemble the glued piece and see how we do. I think we've got it as good as we're going to get it. We got pretty good glue squeeze out all over. There's just a tiny gap in the middle that doesn't want to pull out because of the dish. And I think we're just going to deal with that with maybe some wax fill or something. But I'm pretty happy with this. And there you go. All right, we're going to let this set overnight. We'll come back and see how we did. Well, since I had 3 of these to do, I thought I'd show you how I do it 3 different ways. So we got that Rube Goldberg contraption over there, and the reason that needed is because the edges are tapered. This piece here, the edges are square, so I put a band clamp on it, pull the band clamp tight, and this one right here has 4 screw holes in it. So what I did is I screwed it right to the bench. I screwed one end to the bench, then I glued it, and then I put the other end in and clamped it tight with a clamp right across from, from 12 to 6. I got a good glue squeeze out on both sides, and I drove screws through the holes of this piece at a bit of an angle and pulled it together. I had glue squeeze out across the entire joint, and I've got it leveled with one clamp there, and as soon as I'm done showing you what I'm doing, I'll put a weight right there to flatten that down. But, there's just 3 different ways of clamping something that's round. In general, the band clamps can be tough to work with. Something like that is normally the best route. Alright, this is all going to sit overnight, and then we'll get back at it tomorrow. Good morning, it's the next day. Let's see how our glue ups came out. You can see we're tight all the way to that middle portion here that we had discussed yesterday because of the dish. In other words, I clamped it flat so that little curve manifests itself here, and it's tight all the way at the other edge. So I'll consider that one a success. Let's move on to number 2. That one came out very, very good. Very happy with that one. Let's move on to number 3. Yeah, that's my anvil on that corner. Now, if you remember, this is the one that we screwed to the bench. We demonstrated 3 different ways of gluing round objects. Very nice. Looks good. Okay, move on. I'll take a scraper and start working off some of this glue. Basically just like that. I'll do all 3 pieces. The next step here is to give all these pieces a good cleaning. I mixed up some Dawn dishwashing detergent and some TSP, trisodium phosphate, with some water, and I'm just going to give this a good cleaning, and it's all going to get the same cleaning, the base, all the collars and the column, because this piece is simply just filthy. And when I clean furniture like this, the key is to get the water off as soon as you can, and then you're not going to have a problem. You just don't want to leave the water to set on it and soak through. That's all there is to it, so let me get to it. And this is the underside of the top. This is the plate that the top attaches to, and this is the bottom. This is where the top would sit like this. And as you remember, we had an open seam here that was stable on the other side, but fairly open on this side. So what I'm going to do is just fill it with some epoxy putty to stabilize it. It's really together good enough that it doesn't justify trying to drive a wedge in here and blow it open and then re-glue it. So the epoxy putty will act both as a filler and an adhesive and take care of this. And again, this is just to stabilize this and make it a little bit stronger. It's going to have the top screwed to it. And I'm just forcing the epoxy putty down into that void, and then using a putty knife that I've dampened with a little bit of water. We'll just remove the excess. And that should be good and strong now. No worries about that coming back apart. With the exception of some nicks and dings like that one right there, the finish on this column is in excellent condition. Do our best to save it. To clean in these detail areas, I'm just using a toothbrush. And you can see the goop that's coming out of here. lot of dirt came out of that. I think it's time to start filling this open seam here, and we're going to do it with this, I believe Mohawk calls this hard fill. It's a, I think it's wax and some kind of an epoxy together. It's tougher than just regular wax, and I'm using this tool here that's a battery operated, and it gets quite hot. It melts it, and then they like you to press it down with that piece of metal. It acts like a heat sink, and it also helps adhere it to the surface. I'm just letting that flow into the crack. This kit comes with this little tool. It's basically a plastic scraper. So when you get done applying this, you can just use this to flatten where you've applied it. And the beauty of this plastic scraper is that if you do this on a finished piece, it's not going to damage, as long as you're careful, it's not going to damage your existing finish. And it lets you do repairs on existing pieces. And then it comes with this little tool here that you basically just use to clean out the grooves. Like so. And then you could just take a terry cloth towel or whatever and rub right over what you put down, and it comes right up. Okay, let's move on to something else. I've been playing around with how I can get this rotten finish off this top and still leave as much of the patina as I can. And it's a very thin coating of shellac with some other goo on it. I don't know what it is, but by using the scraper lightly and then coming back with just some denatured alcohol, and this is a shop towel, I'm getting a lot of this finish off. And I think if I get the rotten finish off, I should be able to take care of these color issues and then put another coat of shellac on it and preserve a lot of what it is I like about this, which is it's almost like a burst finish on a guitar, where it's really dark right down here and it's nice and red and gold up here. So what I'm going to do is just continue with my scraper. And see, there's something right there that doesn't want to come up. There we go. With my scraper and some alcohol, and see if I can get as much of this broken finish off and leave as much of the color behind. And that's what's coming up, just a little bit of rotten shellac. Okay, what I'm finding as I start to remove the broken finish is that some of this color shading is applied, and we have some scratches and some irregularities in the surface. So what I'm going to do now is just with some 320 and just on the flat areas, knock this back just a little bit and feather in the tops to the edge. Like right here, if you can see, that finish is gone. And then I'm going to try to replace some of the missing color using a mahogany dye stain. You can see we got a pretty nice scratch right there. Scratch right there. You see that the scratches are starting to show up because the sanding dust is going in them. So I'm trying to get as much of this finish off and leave as much of that color behind. We'll work on that some more and I'll move forward. This is a mahogany colored dye stain that I've thinned down just a little bit.
It's taking a little of it. Not as good as I was hoping. I think it may be starting to take some. Let me keep at this for a while and see how I make it. Okay, I played around with the dye stain. I put some on straight and then took some of it back off using alcohol on a rag. I've got the color, I think, as good as I'm going to get it. Again, I want to leave this thing looking old. You know, part of me says, strip it, sand it, make it perfect, but I don't want that on this piece. I want it to look old, but I don't want broken finish on it. So I'm pretty happy where we are now. I think the next step for this, I think I'm going to put a coat of shellac on it, and then I think I may glaze it. But, you know, I think we're a whole lot closer to where we want to be now than we were 15 minutes ago. I think that's as good as we're going to get it for what we're trying to accomplish here. So I'm just going to spray a top coat of shellac on this to try to seal in what we've done. And yes, I could get the spray gun out and use it, or put it on, pat it, or put it on with a brush. But lots of times when you've got, you know, new color on, if you spray, you don't run the risk of disturbing anything you put down. Alright, we're going to let that set. It's imperfect, but that's what we wanted. That's what I wanted. I think we're very close. I think maybe some glaze. Maybe it doesn't even need that. Okay, we're going to let that dry. And while the shellac is drying, I'm just going to take this marker. This is a mahogany colored furniture scratch marker. And just go around and touch up any of the little dings on the rest of this piece, which will prepare it for the next step. So, got my marker and a lot of time. Here we go. I did the color work on all the pieces, and then I shot a coat of shellac on all the round pieces. I haven't done anything other than color the column. And looking at these pieces with their shellac coat, I don't think there's any need for any glaze. The colors are wonderful. It looks old and it looks really nice. Today was a good day. We got some of the vexing problems solved. We'll be back at it tomorrow.
Hello and welcome back. A few things have happened since you were last here. First off, I got myself a haircut. I think I look pretty stylish. Ladies, I understand. Easy. Just kidding. And then the other thing I did is I put about 5 coats of shellac on that top that we've been working on, and then rubbed it back with steel wool, 4/0 steel wool. Try to take some of the irregularities out of the finish, because we did leave that pretty primitive. And then after that, I've sealed it in a couple of coats of heavy-bodied sealer, again, to try to level out the finish a little bit. So let me show you that right now. So here's our top. There are still some irregularities in it, and we're going to rub this down again once this last coat of sealer dries. I think you can see it's just drying now. But we're going to put this together before we spray finish it. In other words, put another top coat over the whole piece, only because I really don't want to try to hang the column and shoot it while it's spinning. And we still have these feet, whether they're pressed iron or cast steel, I can't tell, but I think they're actually cast. But we've got to get these cleaned up, so we're going to hit these on the wire wheel and paint them. And in the places the mounted wire brush can't get, I'm just going to hit this with a wire brush, a handheld wire brush, and knock the last of that rust off.
And we've got it all back together. One thing we haven't done is the final top coating. And in talking with my wife, just kind of show you here, but maybe you can see the level of sheen here. This has been completely rubbed out. And then you can see this flatness here. She wanted a little bit more of a satin look to the entire piece, less of this gloss look that you get with shellac. So I could have shot the entire thing with shellac and then rub the entire thing down. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to shoot the entire piece with satin lacquer, and that'll give us the finish sheen that we want and give everything a unified look. But I'm quite happy the way the top came out. It's certainly not perfect, but we didn't want it to be. But we surely preserved that patina that we sought to preserve. So the next step here is to shoot a coat of satin lacquer on this piece. Here we go. Well, she's all done, as you can see. We really did a lot of work to preserve the finish, the color patina on the top. Whenever we do that and we don't sand, there's always going to be little imperfections and dents and dings that get covered up by the new finish. And that always bothers me, but it's a trade-off. If you want it to look old, sometimes you have to put up with those imperfections. But, you know, this was a $15 yard sale, fine. It's beautiful, it's going to last another 100 years, and whoever gets it should enjoy it. I hope you enjoyed the video, and please, if you haven't, subscribe to the channel. If you know somebody who you think might enjoy it, you know, please bring it to their attention, and we'll continue to try to make videos that are helpful to you. So, from our shop just outside Kennesaw here in North Georgia, best regards, thanks for watching, take good care, and remember, it's just wood, color, and some shiny stuff. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next video. Bye.